Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Flat Earth School, the school that is around us 24/7 since the beginning of existence. I'm merely a student, like the rest of us, in this beautiful Flat Earth school around us. It is the best teacher you could ever hope for. You just need to know what you're looking at and come to the right conclusions. Today I've got a very special guest, Red Pill Philosophy. How are you, mate? Welcome to Flat Earth
I'm
School.
I'm doing very good, and thank you for having me here on the Flat Earth School.
Before we go into things about Flat Earth and the sex and all that fun stuff, there's something funny going on in your life at the moment. You've got it in the background. You're living in it at the moment. What have you been up to? You haven't been on YouTube for a bit. You've been over at something called Odyssey. What have you been doing the past? Well, yeah, I think it's been at least 12 months since I've talked to you personally. What have you been up to,
Yeah.
mate?
Thanks for asking, man. Yeah, well, at the start of 2021, my YouTube channel, Red Pill Philosophy, was terminated by YouTube. I guess I was too many videos questioning the health scare of 2020. So they terminated it, and I laughed. I thought it was funny. But yeah, I still post content for Red Pill over on Odyssey.com. It's a really cool platform. They have live streaming. They have a whole blockchain, cryptocurrency embedded into it, which is pretty interesting these days. Especially, you're seeing Bitcoin going crazy, and you're seeing all these cryptos go wild. It's a really interesting idea to kind of combine video media content into the whole blockchain space. And that's essentially what it is. So I've been posting a lot there. And as you alluded to earlier, yes, I've also been busy building my own house with my own hands. It's been a hell of an exhausting journey. I'm just about finished here. Drywall is almost complete. I never would have thought in a million years that drywall would be the hardest part of building a house, but without a doubt, drywall has been the most grueling and agonizing part of this entire home build. It's so painful. The learning curve. It's just, I don't know if you want to hear about the tedious details of drywall. I'm going to spare that, but it's really bad. Yeah. So that's kind of the gist of what I've been up to, man. Yeah.
And this is Red Pill Philosophy on Odyssey. Go and subscribe to him or join or whatever you do on Odyssey. I'm not too familiar with it, but that sucks, man. Getting your channel taken away. You had like over 200,000 subscribers, didn't you, before it got taken down?
Yeah, but they had been shadow banning me for years, ever
Yeah.
since around the time that Trump won, around 2017. There was that was when the apocalypse started. That was when the whole demonetization phase started. So my channel was being suppressed in terms of how many views it was allowed to get, or at least how many views it publicly showed under the video. So it was kind of like they were throttling me already. So I was happy. I was actually happy to move to another platform where at least I don't feel like they're screwing around with the numbers, and I can feel more at ease with, well, if that's what the exposure I'm getting is, then at least I'm confident that that's what I'm getting, as opposed to having my exposure sort of taken away through shadow banning and other little techniques like that. So yeah, it's really nice over there for sure.
Yeah, I know it is. Like you want to get your information out. If it's getting banned, if it's getting blocked, if it's not getting notifications, if it's getting taken down, like that's just heartbreaking. So you want to be somewhere that you can actually put information out, and you know it's going to stay there. So Odyssey is where you can catch Red Pill Philosophy at the moment. We'll get back into what's going on in the background. Don't sell yourself short. This isn't just a house. This is a shipping container house. Do you want to go into that a little bit? Like, other than the drywall, what are some of the other challenges you've been having? I'll try and share your other YouTube channel. Think Outside the Container. That's where you can find
Yeah,
the
the shipping container stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, because I have been documenting basically the whole build of this shipping container home, and it's uh, it's been a lot of work, as I alluded to earlier. Like I said, drywall is definitely the most challenging and agonizing part, mainly because of the learning curve. Like that's just the thing you have to deal with when you're doing many things you've never done before, and that's basically been this entire journey that I've been on of building my own shipping container home. It's just learning curve after learning curve. Even how do you find a piece of land, which I started the process of looking for land back in April 2019. So this was a while ago. This was before the health scare of 2020. So looking back, even, you know, a lot of people, if you're looking to buy land, you're going to do it through a realtor, the real estate people. I didn't do that. I literally, I literally went to the public records that are publicly available for anybody. And you can literally send a letter to a property owner and just simply ask them in a letter. I literally hand wrote the letters. Are you interested in selling your property? I had to send out 150 letters to finally get the right property at the right price. But I finally got something that I was happy with. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a shipping container home is interesting. Is it an easier build than a traditional construction? That's a good question. I've never built a traditional house. I have built a shipping container house. I've never had to stack 1,500 cinder blocks, so I don't know. The interesting thing about shipping container homes is that once you start building out the inside of the house, it's basically the same concept as building any other home. You know, you're framing it, you're plumbing it, you're running the electrical, and you're drywalling it, laying some type of floor tile, and it's kind of the same thing. So I think if you're going to do a comparison, the real thing would probably be on the external shell of the house. There is something nice, I will say, about having 3 shipping containers delivered to your property, and you're like, well, there it is. There's the outer shell of my home. It's already built. I just got to put it in position. As opposed to, again, maybe having to stack 1,500 cinder blocks. So yeah. So yeah.
That is really cool. It is such a great option for people looking to do something. Think outside the container. That's such a great YouTube channel.
I did not, you know, deliberately make that name with any allusions to gas pressure or containers. It just turned out that way, but maybe there's some little connection
there. So you got like, yeah, just shopping for shipping containers. How you save thousands of dollars. The plans, you did the plans yourself on SketchUp.
I did a 3D model myself. So I created using SketchUp, I created a 3D model of the shipping container home. Again, I'm doing this out in the middle of nowhere, but literally I'm in the woods. I don't know what you call that. I mean, I again, this journey of building my own house in a rural area began in 2019, before the health scare of 2020, before everything got really wild. So I don't know what you call that. Really good timing. I don't know what the hell it was. I will say that Flat Earth did play some role in my decision to want to move out to the woods in April of 2019. I know that after 2020, a lot of people were trying to get out of cities because it was so chaotic and people thought this was the new world order or whatever, the total chaos. But Flat Earth was actually part of that. I even released a video on my old YouTube channel before YouTube terminated it, titled Flat Earth Return to Nature, where I kind of told people, yeah, you know, this was in 2019 still. Yeah, I'm planning to move out to the woods. I'm going to build a shipping container home. And the idea was that, yeah, because I really did feel like, you know, I was born and raised in the city. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. So I all I know is living in a city and being part of civilization. But Flat Earth, and this might sound silly, but Flat Earth actually helped me realize that maybe civilization isn't necessarily going anywhere. Because, you know, it seems to me like the peak of civilization is space travel. It's getting in a rocket ship, going up, leaving this planet, as they call it, and then going to explore other planets and galaxies. But if none of that's real, then what am I really missing by leaving civilization? Now, to be fair, there's a lot of conveniences to civilization. There's comforts and conveniences. You know, building your own house without a Home Depot 10 minutes away, it's kind of a pain in the ass. The closest Home Depot to me is like, do they have Home Depots in Australia? I don't know.
We've got something called Bunnings. Yeah, it's just like a big warehouse full of just building materials.
Yeah, building materials, basically. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a hassle when, you know, you need it like a screw and the nearest Home Depot is an hour away. But that's why I did most of my ordering of materials. Again, I just did meticulous planning in advance. so I could try to get everything that I needed and in bulk, have it all delivered like in one delivery truck by Home Depot, let's say, in one go. Um, so yeah, it's been a crazy journey, and yeah.
I think it's very relevant right now. There, here in Australia, rural land prices are going through the roof because, yeah, just as you said, people are trying to leave the cities. People don't want to live next to other people who they think they can catch this big bad boogeyman virus from. They're trying to get out. They're trying to yeah, get away from people, get a bit of space. So it's almost like uncanny, the kind of sixth sense that people like us, like just open-minded, like-minded people have about these things before they kind of happen, before this situation that came about. You already want to leave civilization and do your own thing. For us, it was homeschooling before, I think, yeah, the end of 2019. Before all this stuff happened, we just wanted to pull the kids out of the system because we just didn't agree with the system. We started homeschooling in 2019, and that's our best decision. Like, it's uncanny the decisions that we made before, or literally the shit hit the fan, because like, people are trying to homeschool now, people are trying to live rurally now. We were kind of like, yeah, that's what we wanted to do anyway. We wanted to, we saw society for what it was, and we just wanted to, for whatever reason, leave the system. I'm sure another motivation for you was the money side of things. You don't want to have a mortgage. You don't want to be a slave to the system. Has it come out, your shipping container home build, has it come out, do you think, cheaper than a traditional build, doing it?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a great question. So one thing to consider in 2021 was that apparently here in America, maybe other parts of the world, there was massive, I don't know if it was inflation or just overall, there were price increases in the cost to build a home. Lumber prices were skyrocketing in 2021, which was unfortunately the year that I ordered the lumber for this damn house. A 2x4 cost me over $6. A 2x4x8 cost me over $6 when I ordered my lumber for this build. And normally, in normal times, maybe $2. So it had tripled. It had tripled. So you can imagine, let's say all the lumber for a house, maybe $2,000. Now you're talking $6,000. And it wasn't just lumber. I heard electrical supplies had gone up a lot. Probably everything had just gone up. And I'd heard that the cost to hire a contractor to build the house for you up 25%. That's just wild. So it's hard for me to compare how much I've currently paid but to traditionally how much it should cost, because the prices are so crazy right now. I don't even know what a normal price is. I know that the cost increases did hit me. But I'm currently at around, and the house is, I've paid for basically almost everything now, and this build is about 80,000. So it was more than I thought. I believe, because again, you say the word 80,000 and you might think to what you're used to 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but I got hit by the price increases as did every other house. So you have to compare whatever 80,000 means in your mind for a house. You have to compare that to what the actual cost to build houses in 2021 is, which again could be up 25%. So whether or not it's cheaper, I can't break down the price analysis of other types of houses. I just know what I built. But I think it's definitely less expensive. I mean, you don't need a pitched roof on a shipping container. Maybe if you live in a place where it snows, you don't want, a mountain of snow on your roof. So maybe you do want that pitch. But where I live in Florida, there ain't no snow. So I didn't have to add an extra pitched roof on top of the shipping container. I just have the shipping containers. It's a flat roof, and there are systems for water management and drainage on a flat roof. I mean, commercial buildings use it all the time, and that's what I ended up using for me. So whether it's cheaper or not, I can't tell you. My gut says I got a pretty damn good deal. Yeah, maybe not by a lot, but maybe 10 to 15K less than a traditional house, assuming you built it by yourself with your own hands, the way that I did in the middle of the woods.
you're obviously so knowledgeable on this, doing this all yourself. I can see this in the videos, just laying the foundations, those pillars, cutting out the windows, just all the technical stuff that you wouldn't even think of. Like, yeah, just the roof, the lining of it, the engineering, as in like how many walls you can take out inside this thing and still be
Yes.
structurally sound. Like, for people who are thinking about doing this, go to Think Outside the Container YouTube channel. Look at all the videos that Red Pill Philosophy has already made. He's lived it. He's living it right now. He's still going through it. You said not to mention it, but you were offering planning for people who like in SketchUp and that sort of thing, but it kind of got in the way a little bit.
That's
I'll
right.
plug that anyway in case you do, because you did get some clients.
Yeah, and you know, my channel it's a documentation of my personal journey. You know, it's what worked for me in my situation, and you know, it depends. Every area is different. Where I live out in the middle of the woods, there probably aren't as many sort of building regulations as maybe if you lived in the middle of like a giant city. Where I live, the county did require certain, you know, certain requirements. I had to hire an engineer to create the plan, so I had to pay somebody to do the plans. You know, structurally speaking, the county also required that you have professional create the MEP plan, so the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing plans that had to be done by somebody who was qualified. But other than that, there's something called an owner builder, which is when you're the owner of the property, but you're also the builder, and you are allowed, at least where I live, you are simply allowed to build it yourself. Now, if you lived in the middle of a big city, and you got one house next to another house, next to another house, next to another house, and there's houses everywhere all cramped together, you're probably not going to be allowed to build your own house with your own hands. I guess maybe that's one of the benefits of living out in the middle of nowhere. Again, pros and cons. There are some downsides to living out in the middle of nowhere. There are conveniences to living in civilization, if that's what you want to call it. But so yeah, it's just a documentation of my own personal journey. And you know, if anybody else is going to attempt to build their own house, and that's their decision, every situation is different. So it really depends on where you are, what county you live in, what the building department says, and that's something that everybody has to look into. So it's a diverse process. Yeah, Think Outside the Container is basically just documenting what I went through, my personal journey.
It's brilliant, and I'm sure it can help a lot of other people. You've got the plans for download, so it's just things for people to go off, things for just to mention that people wouldn't even think of when attempting this. Because yeah, it's I hear a lot of people saying a shipping container home might be the way to go.
Well, it's like you said earlier. You said that like you had to watch the people who built your house, you know, and you said it was like all the work that goes into it, and that's exactly right. It's a ton of work. So and I think I underestimated it to a bit how much work it was going to be. I don't regret the path, but it was definitely a lot more work than I anticipated. So
it was
yeah,
tough.
absolutely.
Would you recommend doing it for other people?
Like I said, I can't speak for other people. This is documenting my own journey, my decision. I had to live with the consequences, I guess you could say, of my decision, and it was a lot of work. Whether or not I would recommend it for other people, that depends. That depends on if you are willing to do the amount of work that it requires. You may not have time for a full-time job. Maybe you can pull off a sort of small part-time job. But you're going to have to dedicate like your whole life to it, basically. Maybe not 100% of your time, but you know, maybe 80% of 2 years is going to have to be basically nothing but the build if you choose to go out and do that. But yeah, so yeah.
So an immense amount of work, but out of the end of it, you're coming out mortgage free. Like this is just going to be your house. You're going to be living in it. You're going to be financially freedom is where we want to be, especially at the moment when for me, for the past 3 months, I've hardly been working. I am back to work full time now. Like it was getting financially pretty hard. I couldn't imagine trying to have a massive house mortgage plus freaking out about work. That's
Sure.
where they want to, like, I'll take the, like, if anyone wants to go over to Think Outside the Container, that's the documentation that Red Pill Philosophy has been doing. But to go back into just society at the moment, it's the fears that people have, that the government, the world powers that have are preying on at the moment, the fears that people have of losing their home, losing their family, not being able to eat. At the moment, for me, I'm allowed back at work because they've got rid of the mask mandates. That was a thing that stopped me from going to work for 3 months. And now it's kind of the grace period in between, no masks, but the vaccine mandates are coming in. So every individual construction site, each have their own policy. It's not a government thing. There's no, like, they were handing out fines for people not wearing masks. There'll be no fines for people not getting the jab. But they're saying they're putting the pressure on each individual business. Make sure people get double jab before they enter your business, and it's up to each individual business. So it's kind of a grace period at the moment between me being able to work because of no mask and I'm not getting the jab, because that's just something that is, for me, it's supporting genocide. It's as simple as that. I've been saying it for the past 3 months here in Australia, that it's been ramping up.
But genocide in terms of, because you think the vaccine is going to hurt people, or genocide in that you can't work, so you're going to starve eventually. So in what sense are you saying it's genocide?
Well, yeah, I didn't even think of the ongoing effects that this is having on people. But genocide, as in, it is killing people, especially here in Australia. Like, it's surpassed the number of deaths from this disease just from the vaccine alone. And yeah, that's just something I'm not willing to support. I was stopped by someone in the street the other day because there's still people wearing masks, even though you're not meant to. You don't have to.
Right.
And it's very obvious the people, like-minded people that are walking around because they don't have masks on. I stopped in the street and a lady was in a similar situation as me. A lot of people who are not working at the moment in the medical industry, because they can't work. They're the ones being mandated by the government health system, saying you have to be jabbed. So they're not working, and they're the kind of people that we see coming out doing these interviews, giving the information. They're in the medical system. They say how they support normal vaccines, but they're not going to support this one. It is experimental. It's so past what anyone else has experienced before. They're seeing people getting permanently disabled, damaged. Like, they're the people that live, that pull through, sort of thing. How much are they pushing it there in America compared to, like, you've got our view here in Australia? Are they pushing that in America at the moment?
They definitely, well, they're not forcing it, but they're making it harder and harder to not take it, which is, of course, how they operate. Recently Joe Biden, not actual president of the United States, he said that if you're a company with over 100 employees, you have to require your employees to take it. And I know people personally. One dude, he's actually a Red Pill Philosophy viewer. I bumped into him at the post office, of all places, by pure chance. He's like, "Hey, aren't you Red Pill Philosophy?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, what's up?" and he, we became kind of friends, and he actually told me, like, yeah, he had to quit his job recently because they were going to force him to take the fake vaccine. It's weird. It's a crazy thing that's happening right now, and it's really forcing. It's really creating a resettling of society. And sometimes it seems like a good thing. It's like, now we know who people are. Now we know we know who you are just by whether or not you're wearing that muzzle. Okay, maybe you can't totally know a person. You shouldn't totally assume, but And hey, and the muzzled people, they're doing the same thing at us. Now they know who we are. I was one of those crazy people not wearing the muzzle throughout the majority of 2020. I never wore the muzzle once. Once I moved out here to where I live now, there's like a Walmart there's like a small town nearby, and there's a Walmart. It's like I go there like once a week to get groceries and stuff. And I didn't wear the muzzle there once. And I was shopping there since like summer of 2020. So literally the peak of the so-called pandemic. And so it's like this weird thing was happening where like now people know who people are. It's like when I'm like one of the only people at Walmart not wearing a muzzle and everybody else wearing a muzzle, you know, people can probably assume, oh, he's one of those people, you know, and maybe I can look back at them and say, well, you're one of those people. You're one of those people. And then maybe that's a good thing. You know, maybe it was just too much. Maybe it was just time to go our own ways. I don't know.
Yeah, for me, like it really, I can see the divide, like as you're saying, like it's those people versus us people, that sort of thing. But when you're walking down the street, it's a lot easier to relate to people who you can visually see isn't complying, who is like yourself, not wearing the face nappy, not well, if people weren't working, that means they weren't getting the vaccine at the time, and that's how it's kind of going in Australia. If you're not working, it's because you've been forced out of the industry that you're in. It kind of signifies the people that you can go to. And at the moment here in Australia, well, for me personally, my family, people are recognizing that there are large amounts of people like us, like-minded, that don't want to be part of the system, that still need to work, that still want to be part of some sort of society. And there's groups forming here in Australia. There's something called the Freedom Keepers group. Look it up. I should put the link in the description, but Freedom Keepers are just a group of like-minded people who are we're trying to form our own community. So there's people who have lost their job, who have skills that can share to people in the community like us. Like at the moment, we're setting up some swimming lessons with our children from people who have lost their job in that industry. So we're just going to a private house that those couple of instructors are going to come around. We're going to be able to give our money to people who we know are like-minded, who are struggling at the moment, who need support. And plus we're getting services that we would want anyway, because we can't go into a swimming complex without showing proof of vaccination. So it's building up that society that, like me myself, I have wanted to find for so long, just people like-minded, like, you know, relating to people, because it's frustrating.
It's lonely out there, man. It's lonely out there.
It's lonely, and like you spark up a conversation with a normal person, and the shit that you start talking about, the things in the news, like just the normal everyday things that you try to avoid, you're forced into those conversations. When you're talking to people that are like-minded, there is so many other things. Like you're actually learning, you're seeing what other people are doing in your situation, like the homeschooling, the property building, the growing of plants and food and that sort of stuff. Like it's a bad thing as in it's dividing people, but it's a good thing as in you can see the people that you want to hang around. So,
and the same thing applies for the muscle people. Like I said earlier, they you know, like you just said a moment ago, you're like, yeah, well, you know, it's kind of annoying. You know, you start a conversation with somebody and they start talking about the latest sports or the latest normie nonsense. You're like, well, maybe I don't really want to talk about silly normie nonsense. And you know what? I bet the muzzled people were having similar experiences where they're just starting a conversation with someone, and all of a sudden, people like you and I are like, "Hey, do you know the Earth was flat, bro? You know, space is fake, dude." And you know that's destabilizing to a normie in the system who wants to live in that bubble, wants to live in that comfort zone, and is allergic to reality. I'm starting to think there are people who are allergic to reality. It's like maybe it should be some type of diagnosable condition or something. These are people who, and sometimes I think the globe model, that's part of why the globe model exists. You know, it's like, you know, you and I as flat earthers, we can watch a sunrise or a sunset and we can just appreciate that and be like, oh, wow, look, it's a sunrise, a sunset, clearly disappearing into the vanishing line, horizon, that zone of compression. It's a sunrise to sunset. It's this beautiful custom crafted experience that's totally subjective from my personal experience, based on my vision, based on how far I can see. It's not a rock. It's not, I live on a rock ball and the sun is a ball and it's an object going behind an object. That's absurd.
And you and I can away from it.
Yes, and we're falling back. Right. We can just appreciate a sunrise or a sunset for what it actually is. We don't start freaking out. And sometimes I think that's part of what the globe model does. It's it's a belief system to help these people isolate themselves from reality. They are doing, and that's what you see the big move is. It seems to me like there's this big move to separate people, or some people are trying to separate themselves from the actual natural real world. Put the mask on, believe in science, put your VR headset on, get in the pod, and just get away. Just avoid reality as much. See, as flat earthers, we can embrace reality. We can see it and love it. A globe believer has to tell himself that, oh, that sun isn't setting into the distance because of my field of view is creating a subjective experience, because my subjective experience plays a role in reality. Who would have thought? These are soul deniers after all. These are people who don't believe in the soul. They don't believe in consciousness. They literally deny consciousness. Some of these sort of atheist, physicalist, materialist type people. So the globe model is like a way to cope with the natural world that's all around them. So instead of watching a sunset and being like, oh, that's a purely subjective phenomenon based on how far I can see and the limit of my vision, they can tell themselves, oh, but it's just I'm on a rock, and the sun is some external object over there, and it's going around and it's disappearing. They have to constantly, and I think that's what this whole thing that we're witnessing now, starting with the health scare of 2020, it's there's this push. There's two worlds happening. I think there's people who can handle and want to embrace the natural reality of the real world we live in, and then there's the people who need to live in the fantasy land. The people who need to believe in, we went to the moon, we're going to Mars, we're going to explore the galaxies next. But most of these people, they're never going to go to space. Technically, none of them are, but they're probably just going to tell people, look, but Facebook recently announced that they're changing their name to Meta because they want to pioneer the metaverse. And what is it? It's all about VR. It's all about putting that headset on, and I think that's how they're going to explain space tourism. They're going to tell the average person, look, the elites are still the only ones who can go to space because they're important. But you peasant, you're bad for the environment. You're causing global warming. Get in your pod. Put your VR headset on. We're going to feed you grasshoppers. That's the new thing now. Eat grasshoppers. Eat bugs. They want you to eat bugs now because it's bad. You're bad for the earth. And people are going to just be happy exploring space in a virtual model in a VR headset. And that's how they're going to get space travel to everybody. And people are going to be happy with it. So, yeah, it seems like there's two worlds forming now. And some people are just running to that pod to get jacked into the matrix, and then there's people who just don't want it.
That's what my streams are all about. Flat Earth School isn't me teaching people. I'm not the school. It is around us 24/7. Since the beginning of existence, it is our school. It is reality. It is our physical reality that we need to use, that, like you said, people are being dragged away from. And people are comfortable with doing that. People have been shown now that they need to be spoon-fed these things. They hang off every, like here in Australia, we've got an 11 o'clock update from the premier of each state to tell you what the new things that you're allowed to do and can't do. People are hanging on that. People are like at 10:30 is like, it's coming on, it's coming. What can I do today? What can I do? Like people are literally begging to be told what is their reality, what can you do? Like, even though I hadn't been working for very much in the past 3 months, we have taken that time to go out into our physical world. Like we were already, me and my family got 5 kids, got a wife. We love being outdoors. We love going adventuring, going into nature, seeing the waterfalls, the beaches. We've got a very beautiful area around us, and we make the most of it. We were already doing that, and you can really, like I said, going down the shops, seeing the people muzzled. When you're getting out in nature, when you're not meant to be, when we're told we were locked down, you'd spark up the conversations with those people, because they're the people like you that know it's all bullshit, know that you have to get back into nature and enjoying it, because they're the only people out. They're the only people saying, like, I'm just living my life. I'm going into nature. I'm experiencing my physical reality around me, and that's what I try to suggest to people on these streams. Flat Earth School is around us 24/7 since the beginning of existence. Get into it. Get out of the virtual world, like you just said. And that's an interesting take on the space travel. Like that's to me, yeah, putting it's kind of a bit of fun putting a visual a VR headset on, but like you have to know once you take that off that you're back in reality. You don't. For some people, they want to stay in that reality. That's like so cool, so appealing. It becomes their reality, and that's what the globe belief is. We'll get into it a bit. Have you been doing much?
Yeah, I want to actually show you something real quick because I think it would be relevant here. I'm gonna just share my screen real quick here. Just give me 1 second.
There's a little button down the bottom after you press
Yes.
screen share that
Yes,
for audio.
yes. I'll get that right now. Let me move this over here. Because again, like I said a moment ago, Facebook did announce the new, share screen. Easiest screen sharing works best on a good computer. Same screens, let you share audio. Okay, and let's go ahead and
What do you say, Meta? I haven't heard that. I don't usually keep up to date with the mainstream going on. I'm not really on Facebook.
I'm going to screen. Yeah, I'll show you that in just a second. And can you see my screen?
Yep, it's up now. Meta.
Very good, very good. So yes, Facebook actually announced yesterday that they're changing their name from Facebook to Meta in honor of the metaverse. So what is the metaverse? Well, it's a word that's been around for a while, but it's like a parallel reality to our reality. And in the context of big tech and Facebook and all these companies and stuff, the metaverse it's like a parallel reality, but it's a virtual parallel reality. So if you look at the new Twitter page for @Meta, which is the official Facebook. Again, Facebook renamed itself. It's called the description. Meta is helping build a future where people have more ways to play and connect in the metaverse. Welcome to the next chapter of social connection. And the banner, of course, the banner on the Meta profile page is, of course, people virtually experiencing space and planets, which, of course, that's what they're going to do. That's how they're going to explain why isn't everyone just going to space, man? Look, William Shatner went the other day. You know, the globs are always like, how are you going to explain a space tourism? Flat earthers. Well, this is how they're going to have space tourism. The vast majority of the people are never going to go on a rocket to space. They're going to put their VR headset on and they're going to explore the model that we have of the solar systems. You know, it's based on our observations and where we know the distances and the orbits, all computerized in a model that you can explore virtually. So very interesting that would be the thing. And of course, that's like one of the biggest things. Like if you're going to put on a VR headset, one of the most enticing things anybody would want to do would be to explore space. I mean, you could explore, you know, the Eiffel Tower. You can go to Paris with a VR headset, but technically you could do that if you just got on a flight. Space, though, that's still that rare thing that most people can't go to.
It's appealing, isn't it? It plays on imagination.
That's exactly
right. People want to experience it.
It's escapism.
Yeah.
And escapism can be. So I want to ask you. I mean, there is audio to this, but I don't want you to get any kind of copyright thing. Do you mind if I play this, or do you want me to just not risk it because you might be a copyright strike?
No, I go for it. It's all right.
Yeah, it's just a promotional little 1-minute video by Facebook, promoting their new Meta things. So I figured I'd just play because I thought it'd be interesting. I'm not sure. Tell me if you can hear the audio.
No audio coming through.
No audio?
You might. Did you press the little button that said share audio when you're screen sharing?
You may have to. Let me. Yes.
Maybe stop screen sharing. Yep.
Yeah. Share screen.
And then down the bottom there's share audio.
Same screens let you share. Some screens let you share audio. Look for the share audio checkbox on the next window. Okay, on the next window. Yes, share system audio. Very good. And here we go. Now, okay. Now let me know if you can hear it.
Yep.
Okay, so I figured I'll just play this because it might be interesting to viewers. This is the promo for Meta, the new Facebook.
We always ask, where is the future going to take us? But the real question is, where are we going to take the future?
There are no closed doors, no walls.
Holy mackerel, this is unbelievable.
Yeah, they got Granny with a VR headset on. I mean, that to me is almost, there's something nefarious about that, but I'll keep playing.
We may have brain surgeons in Edinburgh operating on patients in New Zealand.
You'll send emotions, feelings, memories.
Imagine a world where we are represented the way we want to be.
I won't say anything.
You know, in the future,
It's VR, it's augmented reality, it's Pokemon Go, it's so fun.
it just feels like long distance won't be so distant.
There's a big frontier. Where do you want to go?
Yeah, something about them being on the moon is a little bit interesting. Because this was a specific reference to long. Let's see. Let's go back a second. See. Yeah, long distance won't be so distant because nothing says love and intimacy like a long distance relationship on the moon or whatever.
Big frontier. Where do you want to go?
And we're just getting started.
Appreciate the past, utilize the present, but don't be afraid to create the future.
Look at the rush of the VR experience. Look, she's like gasping as she takes the headset off.
The future.
Oh, what a rush. What a rush. Yeah, and that's the problem, is that anything can be super exciting if it's not actually reality. And that is one of the things. I'm not against necessarily kind of all this technology. Technically, I think we're kind of having a metaverse experience right now. I mean, it's digital, it's a live stream. So I'm not like saying this is all bad. And VR headsets are probably kind of cool sometimes. But the question is, I think that some people, and that's basically the end of the video, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing. I think some people are really just gonna get sucked into this, as Facebook calls it, the metaverse, and they're gonna go full pod life as quickly as they possibly can.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing it here in Australia. Like earlier in the year, we were meant to have some big festivals, music festivals, where people literally physically get together and they dance, they party, they do whatever they want with other people. Obviously, that was banned. So what they did a virtual one. So the artists were in their own studios, in their own individual studios, and people paid for the experience to put on the VR set and walk around in this virtual world. So it's already happening here in Australia. People were going to virtual concerts, virtual events, if you will, and it was popular. People loved doing it. People felt like they were interacting with people again, and that's the deception, isn't it? That people think that they're interacting with people, having that physical, intimate relationship, like we just saw those two people on the moon. Like, where's it going to stop? It's
Exactly.
I haven't even heard of the Meta, but yeah, that's
Yeah.
where the push is going, isn't it?
It's absolutely,
whole
yeah.
virtual,
Absolutely.
whole virtual.
It's here. It's here, and it's like people have been speculating about it for a while, but now it's pretty obvious to me, at least, that yeah, it's coming. Like, especially after the health scare of 2020, it's just like this is. We now see the divide. We now see that there's two people, and they represent two realities, and so it's going to be interesting, and it's like it's going to be basically the Matrix. I mean, people are going to be like basically in pods, plugged into a virtual reality, in a desperate attempt to escape their actual reality. I mean. And the thing is, I also see that there might be some there is some utility to this that isn't just like satanic escapism, if you want to call it that. Like, there's definitely use to this technology that I think enhances people's lives. Like,
Oh, absolutely. There's some great benefits to it. It's like how you said you and me, we're having a bit of a virtual experience right here. But after this stream ends, after everyone goes away, they're watching this stream, we know we're still in reality. We know we're in a flat Earth. Us personally, it's getting warm here in Australia. We're going to go to the beach. We're going to get out and experience reality. We aren't just going to go, I'm going to go sit on my phone. I'm going to give kids the iPad. We're going to watch some movies. We get out. We distinguish. Like we are very conscious about the technology time that we have in our household anyway, and you can feel it, like just looking on my phone, looking at emails, doing work stuff, like my head starts going like, I don't want to be doing this. It's so unnatural. Like for
Absolutely.
people, I suppose it's like how much exposure you have to these things. Like people who have eaten really bad food, just sugar food, just crap their whole lives, their body feels like they can do that a lot, whereas kind of like we're very health conscious, so when we eat those sort of things, we can feel it straight away. It's all about the exposure that you've had to these things. If you're conscious about the technology side of things, the virtual reality side of things, if you're conscious about health, if you're conscious about freedoms, you kind of, that's I think that's where the divide happens, because you can't go back to what a thing that I like to say is, once you see, you can't unsee. So like people are comfortable. People are comfortable with the atrocities going on. People are comfortable with putting things in their body that they didn't really care. They just want to feel like they can go and have some freedoms again, but they didn't realize that their freedoms were there all the time. And usually it is us. It is our own personal barriers stopping us from doing things. And that's what people need to realize. We'll continue 100%. With the flat Earth. We'll continue with the flat Earth thing. Have you been doing much flat Earth stuff at kind of being off YouTube, being on Odyssey? What kind of topics have you been covering on Odyssey? Have you been doing much work on videos?
I've done some flat Earth videos over on Odyssey.com, but I haven't been really too deep on the topic because obviously I've been really busy trying to finish up this house build. I do keep an eye on, the Nathan Oakley show. I've been watching some of your show as well. I know that there was the Black Swan in 2020, and that was like, just completely. That was mind blowing, and it, I'm gonna blame it on the fact that I was still in the research phase of getting this house built. So I'm gonna blame the fact that it took me so long to really fully wrap my head around the Black Swan. I'm gonna blame it on the fact that I was building a house, because it took me a long time, because it's like the Black Swan is a big deal. That's how everybody hypes it as like a really, 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 really big deal. At first, even though I'd heard the argument, I'm like, okay, I didn't really understand the sweeping implications of it, and it really is the globe killer. And the way that they went 180 from one day to the next. Well, technically we never see the horizon. Technically the horizon isn't physical. Technically it doesn't even it exists, but you can't see it, like Santa Claus. I mean, these are Santa Claus believers basically at this point. It's crazy. And now we have the sextant, of course, which I haven't even begun to scratch the surface on that one. I'm just sort of here kind of listening to the other people sort of pioneer that, peel back the layers of that deception onion. So yeah.
There's never been a greater time to be a flat earther, to be looking into this. There's so much information available. The Black Swan, like you just said, I was just going through the video there from BMLSB69. I'll go back to the start of that, and you can hear. I'll put the sound on this time just to go through it. Get rid of my intro. I'm Mitchell from Australia, and this is the #1 globe killer. Hopefully by now, all of you have seen this video by BMLSB69. His observer height is only 1 foot. Now that first platform is 6.2 miles away, and platform habitat is 9.4 miles away, with the horizon far in the distance beyond that. Now I'm going to let you just sit there and take this in, because this is the absolute #1 globe killer. I'm just going to pause it there for a second. So people are still saying, why are we using this photo? Bendy cranes. Doesn't that aid the globe argument? it's a massive trap for the
Yeah.
globe. It's a massive
Exactly.
trap. Like I didn't realize at first because I was trying to use other photos without the bendy crane refraction.
Yeah.
And it's Quantum Eraser, the Quantum Eraser channel. Go to Quantum Eraser, subscribe to him. He kind of pioneered this. He set the trap. He said no, use this photo because, and then people say, well, they're going to say refraction, and he said, I want them to say refraction.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've ever personally met QE or been properly introduced to him. But from what I've seen, and I've heard Nathan Oakley tell the story about how QE knew that the refraction was actually almost better that there was refraction there, because the moment that they cite the refraction, what's the implication? My mind's a little bit rusty. Why does the refraction actually just bury the grave even deeper?
Because it absolutely does away with their physical leading edge to their globe. So if you have a spherical globe, and I'll continue playing the video after this, it by saying that the horizon is just an optical effect, that's our flat earth argument. That's our argument, ballers. You've just detailed our argument. You've become into the realm of flat earth. You, as a globe believer, you have to have a physical leading edge to your globe for things to be physically blocked, for ships to go over. It has to be physical leading edge, and it has a limit. So it's 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. That's just geometry. That is the limit to what you would see. So this particular image right here and video was taken from a 1 foot observer height. So those platforms, don't get too caught up on the platforms, everyone. Those are just demarcation points. They're just showing how far we can see the horizon in the background. The argument is all about the horizon. So
and isn't there something else with something about straight line versus curved that has to do with the refraction that you see on the oil platform? Is that like another little layer to it?
Yeah, so that comes into it when we get into this. Like, this is layer upon layer of traps that the QEs is set here, because once we get into the sextant, when we're saying, look at the black swan, what's happening here? Globe believers say it's refracted. There's a bendy line. Light is refracting in a bent line from the observer height to the whatever you want to call the horizon. It's bending, and when the sextant comes into it, the sextant needs a straight line. And that's the second trap that's been set, and they're playing into it right now. They're Bob, the pseudoscience guy, he's at the forefront for the Globers, trying to explain how the sextant works. And there's a great clip of Nathan Oakley just asking Bob, how do you achieve a straight line from the sextant to the horizon? And Bob says, you can't. You don't. That's not what we're saying. And that's the dilemma that they have. You need a straight line from the sextant to that horizon. That's what you have to have.
And they no longer have straight lines after the black swan, because they had to admit that everything is refracted.
Exactly.
So everything is bendy now. There is no straight line.
So what are they going to go back to? No, we are seeing straight lines, and that's what I got from one Glober the other day. A troll that has been like, he goes through every single one of my videos and does like a debunking. So he obviously he's got no life. He came on my show. He said that the way we use a sextant is we look straight through the sextant, and it's a straight line straight to the horizon, and that's how we get angles. And I'm like, yeah, welcome to flat Earth. What happened to the refraction? Like,
exactly.
And that's the dilemma that they find themselves in at the moment. They've got, I think the globe believers need to get together. They need to get their story straight, and then they need to come back to us, because the sextant now is the #1 flat Earth proof. We'll just finish on the We'll finish on the black swan. We'll just go through the Modus Tollens and what the implications just from January 1, 2020 up until we were talking about the sextant. We'll see what actually meant. Modus Tollens states, if P, then Q, not Q, therefore not P. If P, we live on a globe of radius 3959 miles, then Q, every horizon distance measurement cannot be more than 1.23 miles times the square root of the observer height in feet. Not Q, the geometric horizon is far greater than 2.73 miles for 5 foot. therefore not P.
See, this is, if
The
you would
Earth
pause real quick,
is not
this is
a
this
globe.
is like one of the things that originally had me confused about the black swan, because I understand the modus tollens thing, and I understand the sort of logical consistency that it mandates. But I originally, when I first heard of the black swan, I was like, well, I don't understand what the big deal is, because they can always just whoop out refraction, and they can always say that there's a million crazy phenomenon happening. There's always, it's just, you can see wild things. Even, you know, when I was doing the P1000 observations, I got crazy changes within an hour. You know, the horizon would just, I mean, the whole thing would just go crazy. So I was like, it didn't really make sense to me how you were trying to take not you, but I guess QE, if he was the one who solely formulated this, take the modus tollens as like a very strict logical thing, and then apply it to the wild realm of refraction. But later it all became very clear. One of the things being is that, I mean, there's a horizon beyond where the horizon is supposed to be. I mean, that's a big deal. And of course, the globs, their response was almost like, it made it even worse for them, because then they just ended up saying, well, you never see the horizon, and then there's all the refraction, and you know, it's like I still don't know to this day how they explain the second horizon beyond the physical. Like, what is that? Is that what flat earthers are always talking about? A perspective induced horizon? Like, where does that come from? I think some have said that the refraction is peeling it off from further behind the globe, and it's peeling it off. It's almost as if it's peeling off some second point past the actual original geometric horizon and pulling up a brand new second one for you to see, which I think makes literally zero sense.
It makes zero sense, because even in their own reality, what are they thinking is happening? They're thinking that, yeah, light is bending around a curve to get to what, a physical leading edge that things are going over. You don't have your physical leading edge anymore. You've done away from that. You've chucked that under the bus. You don't have that physical leading edge. How are you seeing something that you say is physical, blocking things, but you're saying no, it is not physical, it's not what we're seeing? It goes into it's cognitive pain. It really signifies the mental gymnastics that globers have to go through to explain these things. Us flat earthers, like you said before, we just see things. This is just an observation. This is just great technology using a Nikon P900, zooming in, and we used to say we see too far, but that we can just say we just see. We can just see things. And without getting into the refraction argument too much, I had a couple of guys on just talking about refraction, and he studied refraction. He did a thesis on refraction. He knows exactly what refraction is, and he was saying, if we're seeing too far, that means there is actually less refraction, because refraction is actually just preventing our vision from seeing that far. It is a distortion, if you will. It's definitely not a and this gets into the paradox, it's definitely not a 7/6 of the R value terrestrial refraction, and that's where the black swan went initially. So when the ballers say refraction, that's standard or terrestrial refraction. So it's on Mick West's website, 7/6 R. So you need the R value to have this refraction. The black swan, by having this observer height at 1 foot, seeing a horizon in the distance past 10 miles, for the physical geometric properties, when we say the distance to the horizon can be no more than 1.22 times the square root of observer's height in feet, that relates to a globe of 3959 miles with the radius of 3959 miles. If we're seeing this observation, the new radius comes out to 264,000 miles. That's the radius of their globe.
Crazy.
And that's past the distance to the moon. That the radius is the the argument for the black swan. That's what the modus tollens comes out as. You no longer have your radius for your globe.
Do you ever wonder? Sorry to interrupt. Do you ever wonder if the whole ships disappearing bottom up thing that they spoon fed to us, claim that Aristotle proved it that way or whatever? You ever think that was like they deliberately planted that to distract us from the horizon itself? Because it seemed like after the black swan, the focus was on the horizon. Before the black swan, the focus was on the object and how much it was visible or not. Sometimes I wonder if they, if there is somebody who's creating this deception, purposely misdirected our attention to, oh, look how much of the lighthouse I can see. I can see too much lighthouse, when the horizon was like the key the whole time. It seems like the horizon was, it wasn't so much whether or not you can see something above or below the horizon, but the question is, can you see a horizon further than where the horizon is supposed to be? I don't know. Sometimes I just wonder if they were, because I think some of these people are a few steps ahead. Because see, flat earthers, we're reverse engineering their lie, the deception. So if there's some people who maybe know a little more or are really deep in that model, sometimes I wonder if maybe some of them are just a few steps ahead and they had these little misdirections to distract us. I don't know, just random thought I have.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't heard anyone bring that up, and that's where our mind goes. Like, why are we still, to this day, we're still being told that one of the best globe proofs is boats disappearing over the horizon? It's focused on, the object, the boat. And it's the argument now, for if you are in the flat earth argument, you've probably heard about the black swan. The argument is about the horizon. It is not about the object, because, refraction is a thing. There is looming, stooping, towering. There's a couple other ones, miraging. Those are all focused on objects relative to the horizon. It is never the horizon moving itself. And
exactly. It's not that the horizon is moving back and forth to reveal a lighthouse that is or is not there. It's that the lighthouse is almost in a way coming up and down, being brought up and curved over it. So those are two very distinct things. And the horizon shouldn't be moving back and forth, because that would be like the earth is inhaling and exhaling. The R value would be changing all the time. So again, it's very interesting. I do wonder if that was a deliberate misdirection. Don't worry. It's not the horizon moving back and forth, because that would be bonkers on a concrete radius earth. It's the object kind of being refracted up and down. And it's funny because they're kind of related. Like the higher up a lighthouse is over the horizon, boy, I don't know if I could articulate this in the words, man. It's too much on the edge. I cannot put into words, so I'm not going to go down there. But it's something. There's an interesting relationship there between, because it's almost like, by implication, if a lighthouse, let's say you go out one day and you can barely see the lighthouse. Most of it is hidden behind the horizon, behind the horizon. But then you go out the next day and suddenly the lighthouse is more visible. A more visible lighthouse would be equivalent to a horizon that has pushed further back. Is that kind of accurate?
Geometrically, if you're living on something like a sphere, it has a limit to where you can see. It has a physical blockage, and they no longer have that physical blockage. So when we're describing things like a lighthouse being able to see, you see more of it one day, you don't see as much of it the next day. What is happening there on their globe? They now have to say that it's not a physical horizon that we're seeing. It's not a physical thing, because that would indicate that, the globe is growing, it's contracting, it's breathing. No, they have to take themselves out of that physical situation. They no longer have geometry. They have to play into our world. It is all optical. And that's when we can welcome them to flat earth. They don't even realize.
Welcome to flat earth.
When they say that argument, they don't even realize that that's our argument. They're now stating that the horizon is optical. It's nothing to do with a geometric edge. But then when you when the sextant comes along, the sextant puts it back into geometry. We're now using the sextant to measure It is a measuring device. The sextant is an angle measuring device. We're using the sextant to measure a geometric plane, a geometric flat plane. So it is taken, the black swan has taken their geometry away from them, and the sextant has given everyone a geometry back. It is a physical flat geometric plane that we're measuring, because when you're looking through the sextant, you don't even have to assume that you're living on a globe. You don't have to assume that you're living on a flat earth. You just have to know how the sextant works. And the sextant only can work if you have a flat baseline looking from the observer through the sextant to the horizon. That is the first flat baseline, and then you can achieve an angle from that. So there's two things going on when you think you're living on a globe. If you think that refraction is the thing, you've got a curved surface curving away from you, and that all falls apart when you're using the sextant. It is not, you cannot achieve an angle on a curved surface. It needs to be absolutely flat, and that's just how triangulation works. Because if we continue on from the sextant, what we use it for is celestial navigation, and celestial navigation utilizes the sextant and utilizes the known geographical positions of stars. So a geographical position is where a star is directly overhead, 90 degrees. So can you obtain a 90-degree angle on a curved surface? It's impossible. It's geometrically.
You definitely can't get a 90. Could you, I'm not like super like math friendly, but maybe you have an opinion on this question, which is like, could you even derive any angle from a triangle where one of these sides is curved? I mean, is that even, could you even do that? Could you pull out your protractor and like measure and get something out of that? Even if it's got some error, could you get anything out of that? Or it's just simply impossible? You just cannot do it. I'm just curious, because I don't know.
What they have to do when we're showing the cartoon globe, and we've got a GP of a star above this cartoon globe, when they put the little 90-degree angle, the little box, like everyone knows that, the square, the little box where it meets the ground, they have to zoom in, and they have to treat that point where the GP hits the ground of the curved surface as flat. That's the only way you can get a 90-degree angle, because if you've got a GP, a vertical line like a plumb bob, you'd say, on a curved surface, at every point past that GP, it is dropping away from you. Where are you putting the horizontal angle, the 90-degree angle? It's going off into space. It's not following the curve of the Earth. You can't achieve a 90-degree angle. Every angle would be more than 90 degrees, especially when you're moving out past that GP point. There's no point where you can, if you've got a vertical line, a plumb bob, there is no point where you can get a 90-degree angle. It's going to always be, if you're using a tangent, obviously you're assuming, like, this is going back into the begging the question. You haven't got the R value, you haven't got the globe. If you can push that to the side, how can we achieve angles on a curved surface? You have to use a tangent. So that's from your observer to touching the geographical horizon, the edge of the globe. So that's the only way that they can use something. But you need that straight line. It is a straight line from your observer point, whatever you're looking through, whether it be eyeball, the sextant, whatever. They're using a tangent, and it's touching the curved surface of the globe. It's not actually the surface of the Earth that we need to be measuring. And so it gets back to the argument. We can't physically measure any curvature on the Earth. We can't physically measure it. Using, back into the argument of maps, when surveyors are using a total station or a theodolite, they are treating everything as flat. They never take into account any curvature. They're using these angle measuring devices, much like the sextant, but they're trying to physically measure the layout of the land. And if the curvature was there, it would definitely be apparent. It would definitely be available to be measured, but it does not get measured. Every map that we have is using this premise that they have that flat, straight baseline to whatever they're shooting at. And so the argument now becomes that we get told, by the globers, produce your your flat Earth map, you don't have a map, you don't have a model. Yeah, we don't have a model, but every map that we use, like Google Maps, Near Maps, navigational maps, they're all flat Earth maps. They have all been physically measured with the premise that you have a flat plane. That's the only way that an angle can be derived from using these angle measuring devices. You have to have two straight lines and meeting at a vertex. You can't even say, can this work on a globe, because we don't have the situation where we can test that. We don't have a curved surface for it to be tested. Yeah, obviously we have terrain, we have elevation, we have those sort of you see the contours on topography maps. They're elevation.
Could a sextant work? Does a sextant only work over water, or could you actually navigate on a terrain? You know, let's say there's mountains and stuff, so you don't got that. You don't necessarily have a flat. Or for that matter, you couldn't even really see a horizon, because let's say you got trees and forests all around you. Is a sextant strictly a marine navigation instrument? Would you happen to know?
I think it is predominantly used on over the water, because yeah, you have that horizon that's really defined. But I don't know. Maybe that's a question probably to ask Ten's man. There are definitely the way that, if we look into Al Biruni, you've heard of the story of Al Biruni, how he physically measured the curvature of the Earth from going up a mountain. He first had to get the height of the mountain, and I think he used something called an astrolabe. So it's sort of like the sextant, but I think it uses the premise that the straight line is just 90 degrees to the vertical. So he's got kind of like got a plumb bob, and 90 degrees to that is his flat baseline, and that's the premise he had to use to get the height of that mountain. He had to assume that what he was looking at was a total flat plane in order to get the angle up to the mountain. So again, two straight lines on a flat plane, and then he got the height of the mountain. He went up there, and then he thought he was back on a globe, back on a curved surface. That's when the mental gymnastics comes into it. He didn't assume he had a radius when looking at the mountain to get the height of the mountain, but then when he was up top of the mountain, he had to think, there is a radius value obtainable here. I am looking across the curved surface that's curving away from me, and that's when it goes back into the mental gymnastics the globers are trying to go through at the moment. They're scrambling. There's not many people addressing this point that the sextant is the #1 flat Earth proof. We are physically measuring. Yeah, it is proof. It is physical proof that we're now measuring a geometric flat plane. There is
not scientific proof, but
very different to scientific proof.
Okay.
Very different.
Do we have a scientific flat Earth proof yet? Does anybody?
Well, me personally, no. I haven't been able to formulate a scientific flat Earth proof, but in saying that, the globe has no scientific proof either. But they claim that they have science. Science is on their side, apparently. Science has been on their side for the whole time. And that's what pseudoscience is, claiming that you have science without anything being put through the scientific method. That is the definition of pseudoscience. So if a flat earther does claim that they have scientific proof of the flat Earth, yeah, that would be pseudoscience. But we don't claim.
Wait, do you think it's possible, or do you think that the sextant, being a non-scientific proof, do you think that's maybe the only kinds of proof we're going to get for the Earth being flat is going to be like measurements, or like a sextant, which uses angles and stuff? Or do you think we could actually transcend into the realm of scientific experimentation to prove the Earth is flat?
Well, it kind of goes into the realm of what is. And if it's a what is, it is not a scientific inquiry. It is science is a cause and effect relationship. So we need to have an effect.
You need that phenomenon. You need that
phenomenon. You need
something. And is a flat plane a phenomenon? You know, I don't think so.
What are we seeing happening? Yeah, so it gets back to that's why the globe think that they have scientific proof, and why no flat earthers are claiming scientific proof, because yeah, it's empirical. It is a method of empiricism that absolutely prove things. You're either going to prove your hypothesis, your alternative hypothesis, or you're going to prove the null hypothesis. So either way, you're going to prove that the cause is causing the effect or the cause is not causing the effect. That's what science does. It proves the cause of an effect through rigorous experimentation. But what the globe does, they say that they have a phenomenon when they don't have a phenomenon in the first place. How do we scientifically validate the Earth rotating? Can we see, can we observe Earth rotating? No, we look up the stars. Stars are rotating. Okay, so that's a phenomenon. What's the cause of stars rotating? Oh, that's because the Earth is rotating. What you're trying to prove is the Earth rotating, but that has become the cause. And obviously the cause needs to be in existence, needs to be proven before you can say that it is causing something. So we don't have a scientific, the rotation of the Earth cannot be scientifically validated. It cannot get past the very first step of observing the natural phenomenon, unless you can. Do you think we can observe the Earth rotating without looking up the stars?
Can we observe the Earth rotating without looking up at the stars?
Obviously, begging the question here that Earth could be rotating.
Of course. I'm going to say no, because you're on the well, I don't know if it's called a reference frame, but you're on the thing that you're trying to determine if it's spinning or not. So how would you know it's not just some relative apparent? How would you know exactly? How the hell would you know?
Exactly. Where are you going to be viewing this Earth rotating from? Is it from we get back into the Coriolis effect. And so if you are on the rotating reference frame, anything leaving the rotating reference frame, say a drone, a hot air balloon, a bird, a plane, just jumping, you're leaving the rotating reference frame into the inertial reference frame, and you would see drift from the rotating reference frame. So when Neil deGrasse Tyson says that when someone kicks a football and it is aided by 1/3 of an inch deflection to the right because of Earth rotating, he's literally saying that things moving, the Earth is moving underneath that football that is being kicked. So the football's left the rotating reference frame. We're turning underneath the football, and that's why we're seeing deflection. Do we see that in anything here on Earth? We don't see it in drones, we don't see it in birds, hot air balloons, anything leaving the rotating reference frame. That's where, you would be viewing the Earth actually moving. When we're in planes, or a hot air balloon, just being there, just hovering, a drone, the drone would be sitting there, and from the drone's perspective, you would see the Earth moving. But from the perspective of the Earth looking at the drone would be whizzing away at 1,000 miles an hour. We don't see that. And so, as you just said, we can never see the rotating reference frame. So there's no scientific inquiry to go into. That's right. Just one aspect. Like, I did a show the other day just highlighting that the globe has no scientific validity at all. Nothing from the globe, what they claim, has been put through the scientific method. Well, obviously gravity is what is gravity in the first place? Is it an effect? Is it a cause? They can't even could tell us that. Obviously things like the molten iron core, we can never observe the molten iron core, and that's obviously begging the question again that we have a spherical Earth with a radius with a core, that sort of thing.
But what would be and from their perspective, what would even be the use of even pursuing what they believe is scientific experimentation when in the second breath they admit that science doesn't prove anything? It's like, what do you even, so it's of course, it's not a surprise that people who think science proves nothing have no actual science for their fake religion. And it's nuts, man. The fact that they would even, when I was debating MC Toon, I don't know if did you know that I debated that guy?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, it was brilliant.
Yeah, I got him to he didn't want to say it though. He was struggling. I'm like, so science doesn't prove anything. He's like, that's 100% correct. Science doesn't prove anything. And I'm like, so there's zero scientific proof for the heliocentric model.
Yeah. And
instead of just saying that's 100% correct, no, he didn't want to go there. He didn't want to go there. So that's the implication of you saying that you have. And again, like you Neil deGrasse Tyson, you got all the science educators parading around saying science proves it. We got YouTube saying if you question science, we ban you. but none of your science proves anything. So what basis do you have for banning people for having the wrong opinion, for pointing a finger and mocking flat earthers for being crazy, even though you have zero scientific proof for your religion, ball? It's very funny, the implications of science doesn't prove anything. I think the debate ends there. Honestly, I mean, I think it's over right there. I think the moment your opponent who masquerades as the emperor of scientific knowledge, says, by the way, I have zero scientific proof for anything I'm saying. I think that's it. It's over. You can just pack your bags right there. But anyways.
That's what they have to say now. That's what they're forced into, because science absolutely proves things. It is an empirical method. Before us flat earthers came along and told them that they had no science, they had no proof. Yeah, science proved everything.
Yeah.
That's what it does. It does prove things empirically. It is an empirical method of absolute. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. That's what it does. It proves things. And so when they realize that they don't have any scientific evidence, they don't have anything to put through the scientific method, it is all pseudoscience, they have to then say, oh, science doesn't prove anything. We can't use science. Maths proves things. That's what I'm getting from Fight the Flat Earth when I debated him. Maths proves things. The concept.
I heard that. That was just so stupid.
Apparently maths proves things. And then we put back onto them the black swan, the maths of the geometric limitations, the maths, because geometry is maths. That's what geometry is. It's just maths, and you relate it to a physical object. So when you got a physical limitations of a globe, 1.22 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, when we see the black swan, there's multiple black swans. There's not just one. I've done one myself in Australia. When we're seeing those physical limitations, those maths getting broken, that is not reality, is it? You can't apply maths that proves things to reality.
I had a Glober once come up. Well, it was in a debate with somebody else that I was watching the debate, and the guy's like, the Glober's like, yeah, science doesn't prove anything, because technically our brains could be in a vat, and we could be in the Matrix and being fed a false reality. So technically, you can't really prove anything scientifically, because technically we could be in the Matrix and everything you see around you is a false reality. This is coming from a globe believer trying to defend the globe. But I mean, even albeit a bit solipsistic, I mean, technically, that maybe that's not impossible, right? I mean, technically, if our reality is an illusion, being generated to us by, I don't know, some freaking Matrix software or whatever, then is a scientific experiment truly proving anything, or could it all be an illusion? I understand that it's absurd and it's solipsistic to appeal to Matrix in order to say that science doesn't prove anything, but I wonder if there's just an inherent uncertainty in life that we just can't get away from. Could you ever really know anything with true concrete certainty? Can you actually get to the point of causation, or is everything technically just correlation? Sometimes I speculate about that. I don't have too much of an opinion on the matter, but I guess some people will appeal to Matrix to say that science technically can't prove anything. And I guess I don't know. What do you say to that? If a Glober says, well, science actually doesn't prove anything because you could be in the Matrix, and what you think you just proved is actually just a false reality?
I'll say, where's this coming from? Is this coming from the mainstream scientific people like Stephen Hawking that says that, yeah, he's science, he was entrenched in science, he had surrounded himself by science, but then again he said that we could all be in simulation. This has come from mainstream, and you need to question everything coming from mainstream, because they know that they don't have any science. If he's someone who has surrounded himself by science, well, it's questionable, like that individual, whether he did anything, he was capable of anything anyway. But I can't say these words coming from him, the robot voice coming from him saying that we could be in a simulation. That is coming from the globe belief. That is coming from the side that they know they don't have science. So they have to steer away from it. They have to say, well, maybe this is all just a simulation. Maybe we can't prove anything. Maybe our world isn't what you think it is. Maybe that hand held up in front of your face. Are you looking at your hand? No, no, you're not looking at your hand. Everything that we're experiencing here is an illusion. It's not reality, and that's what I try to promote. I try to promote getting back to reality, getting back to what we can see, what we can experience, what we can smell, touch, feel, taste. It is these senses that we have to be appealing to. That is all that we can experience. If it is a simulation, we would have no clue if it's a simulation. All we can do is experience what we're experiencing. Just like, unless someone told you you were living on a globe, you would never come to the conclusion. It's just like, unless you were told you could possibly be in a simulation, you would never come to the conclusion that we're in a simulation. It's arguments like that the mainstream has to put forward to kind of put into the minds of people. Well, if you do get to the stage where you are questioning our science validity, maybe it just could be a simulation. Maybe it doesn't mean anything anyway. There's no point looking into these things, just
exactly.
It
definitely seems like a cop out. I definitely think appealing to matrix fallacy is a major cop out.
That fallacy.
appeal to matrix fallacy. But yeah, and I mean, they it's, again, you cannot, these globe believers, these globe cultists, they parade around as if they have all the answers, as if the science is settled. That's a phrase they love to use. The science is settled. There is no debate. We see it with the healthcare of 2020. They're using science to, the science is settled. Put your muzzle on. The science is settled. Get your thing. The science is settled. How dare you question the shape and nature of Earth? But then they turn around and say, well, science doesn't prove anything. It's all speculation. You might live in the matrix. There's definitely a marketing, a PR crisis happening with these people. And for me anyways, it's because we don't live on a ball, obviously.
Yeah. I just want to touch on what you just said there, that we're told that we have science, that there's something going on, there's a disease going on, it's been scientifically proven. Epidemiology. I went through this in a previous show titled The Globe Does Not Have Science, something along those lines. Epidemiology is one of those sciences that claim they have science, but they don't it's not put through the scientific method. All epidemiology is doing is proving a causation. It's not actually proving a causation, it's showing a correlation. There's no causation involved. The SARS-CoV-2 virus has never been isolated. You cannot have a observed natural phenomenon in the first place to see what the causation of it is. It's just correlation, a risk factor correlation, and that's definitely not science. So once again, we're being science is trying to be put upon us in the name of science. Science has been proven. You have to listen to the science. You have to appreciate that you don't know what you're talking about. That's the thing. Like, they're taking your beliefs and saying that, and knowledge and trying to find gaps in that. You don't know what you're talking about. That's what they're trying to say.
Right.
Going back to I had a super chat that puts us back onto the topic of Tabor J. Eaton says flat Earth equals creator. That's why people existed, and that's another thing about the whole simulation. So the ontological primitives. It gets back to whether we were just a big random mess of chance. That's how the Big Bang puts it as. Like, that's how a lot of the mainstream puts it as. We just happened. We just came out of nothing. We evolved from monkeys, evolved from fish, and all that sort of thing. All the other ontological primitive is that we were created. We have a creator. Have you got an opinion on that? Do you think that we have a creator after looking into flat Earth?
Great question. Creator. Yeah, I mean, I know that it's a common statement from flat earthers that flat Earth forces you basically to believe that there's a creator. There had to be a creator if it's flat. I think you're going to be more inclined to think there is a God creator if you accept that the Earth is flat. Certainly more so than if you think you live in a empty, infinite vacuum of pointless, random, whatever that happened for no reason, whatever. Yeah, I'm not so sure.
Do you think there's intelligent design behind our world, our physical world around us? It kind of gets into the realms of what is our world, I guess, when you realize that we're living on a flat Earth, that we can physically measure a flat Earth. It's everything that we do takes into consideration a flat, stationary, enclosed Earth. Do you think it could be intelligently designed, or what's the other option, that it was just all random, happen, chance? Like you may not have even considered it yet. A lot of people haven't.
No, that's a good point, because I mean, I guess the question is there something inherent about a flat reality that provokes the idea that it must have been created? Again, like I would say, like the heliocentric model with the Big Bang came out of nothing for no reason. Everything's happening completely randomly. That I think you can kind of tell yourself, well, maybe it did happen for no reason. I think it's easier to tell yourself there was no creator than it is if you consider the Earth is flat and then try to say, okay, is there not a creator? It's funny because in the process of building the shipping container home, which has been a grueling and exhaustive process, I've come to appreciate like how important racking his brain is to all the comforts that we enjoy. And sometimes sometimes I'm after like working my ass off all day, I'm just completely brutalized. I'm like, so what did God have to do with any of this? Like this roof over my head, where I had every single molecule, I had to think about it and then coordinate everything to bring it all together, and then break my mind and body to build it. What role did God have in providing me this very basic comfort that without it, I would be in the wilderness, running away from snakes, alligators, getting eaten alive by mosquitoes? The natural world could be a very harsh place. I don't think the average person just wants to walk around, and I don't think the average person wants to sleep out in the wilderness, just in the wilderness. I think the average person wants a roof over their head. They want some walls. They want some isolation from nature, which is kind of funny because we were talking about that earlier with the metaverse and the people living in the pods, and the people who want to separate themselves from nature and they want to go into that metaverse. But I think when you put walls up around your house, it's kind of like you want some separation from the natural world. You want a little bit of a boundary between you and the natural world. So I guess what I'm saying really has no basis or bearing on whether or not the flat Earth did have a creator or did not. But I guess the question is, my point would maybe be like, well, if God did create it, but everything that I'm grateful for as far as comfort and not getting eaten alive by mosquitoes is a product of me breaking my brain. And if I just sat around, I mean, maybe if I just sat around praying, a house would have appeared for me to just walk into. But no, I mean, in my experience, I had to break my brain. I had to burn every brain calorie I had to put this thing together. So I guess my point is not so much whether or not God did or did not create the flat Earth, but the question is, well, what is he doing for us on this
in our everyday lives? Like, where can we experience God as traditionally?
And then that gets into like the thing. Well, I guess there are certain. Everybody's probably had experiences. Maybe not miracles. Maybe that's too strong a word. But everybody's probably had experiences where, like, by sheer chance or seeming chance, some will call it the grace of God, some circumstances came together in a way that they couldn't have planned, and it got them out of a tough situation or whatever. So maybe that is, the role that God has, because one thing's for sure. I mean, if we all got to work, if we want at least a decent life where we're not getting eaten alive. Okay, maybe it's just where I live and the climate. Maybe if I live in a colder climate, there wouldn't be a swarm of insects. Maybe I could just, well, I probably wouldn't. If it's a colder climate, I probably still need shelter, because then I would freeze to death. So it seems no matter where you are on the flat plane, the human man's mind has to put itself to the grindstone and maybe make his life a little less painful. So what role does God have in that? I guess would be my question back to you. With all the work that we have to do as individuals to make our lives decent, what role, if a creator did create our flat Earth, what's the purpose of it? What should we honor it? Should we pretend it's not, there is no creator, or is he just watching? Is he just sitting up there watching and laughing at us?
Yeah, for me, I'm not religious. I never have been religious. I went to a Catholic school. I saw firsthand what I call it just another control system, a kind of deception, if you will. It is coming from man. It is coming from the perception of it. It gets back to what we perceive as what the creator is. To me, I didn't even consider there being a creator to being a god before getting into flat Earth, because being in a Catholic system, you can, as I said, you like you're trying to say here, praying for things, it doesn't, you're not seeing results. If bad things are happening in the world, why isn't God stopping it? That's sort of mentality. It all gets back to what we perceive a creator to be, what influence they have in our everyday lives, what influence they have had in our world around us. And since looking into flat Earth, I've kind of come to the realization that, getting back to the ontological primitives, either we were it all happened out of chance. We were all kind of Big Bang, like the sort of the mainstream narrative to how everything came into existence, compared to a creator creating what we're living in. And there was an episode of The Simpsons that I like to refer to, how Lisa kind of created her own little world of little people from zapping a bit of mold or something, and they put her into they zapped her into this into their world, and they asked her questions like, why am I so fat? Like, why have you done this to me? If you're an all-knowing, all loving, you've created us, why are these bad things happening? And it's all comes to perception of what is a creator. I guess it is like everyone has their own idea of what this world is. Obviously, everyone has made their mind up and is still making their mind up. There's still people that, the majority of the people on this world, whatever you think it is, think they're living on a planet, and they literally make their own reality. So I think it's every individual's perception of where we're living. That everyone has, it's all a personal journey. It's all to be told what this world is, to be told how we've come here. That's kind of the deception. If you have to rely on other people to know where you came from, to know what your reality is, you're not being true to yourself. You're not investigating it for yourself. So I think it all comes down to each individual's perception to where it is we're living, or the purpose of our lives, the things that we're doing. Like you've just said, you've put so much hard work into this. Yeah, my wife is kind of that mindset that we create our own our own reality, as in we are our own gods, we are our own creators, we are our own architects of whatever we have. Like, she is deeply into the whole reclaiming kind of women's power sort of thing, and women have so much power. Women are literally the creators of this world, like as we know it for humans. Like, we've all come from a woman, and women have so much power. So you could say that a woman is the creator of everything that we know. So it all comes down to the perception of what we think is a creator, what we think this world is, what we think our purpose is, and those sorts of philosophies, I guess.
Except for the women out there who are muzzling their children. Maybe not those. Maybe not those. Maybe there's something off there. But so then let me ask you then, what do you think? Do you believe there is a God?
A God as in the sense that we're told, like God, Jesus in the Bible, that sort of stuff? No, I don't. I can't see myself.
Anything.
Well, anything. It gets down to has this world been created? Are there things that we can't explain, like entropy? What is the cause of entropy? It just happens. What is the cause of light? We can't. There's so many things that we can't explain. It might be a gap in our understanding and knowledge, but to me it seems like we have been intelligently designed, whatever that means. It seems like we have a purpose being here. We weren't just well, obviously evolution is a load of crap. It's just been put upon us to kind of push the globe narrative that we've all been kind of, it's billions of years old, that sort of thing. For me, I think that we have intelligent design, why we're here, but to do with like our everyday lives, whatever that intelligent design means, I don't think whether they have an influence on whatever we're doing, like it gets into the realms of like, is what we're doing already predetermined, or do we have our own free will? Like it kind of goes into these philosophies of like, yeah, is everything already predetermined? Does something, an all-knowing being, know what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be saying, what's going to be happening, the predictive programming sort of stuff? Or for me, it is just, I can only experience what my reality is around me and what I can see around me. I see my wife creating our 5 children. To me, she's our creator. So that's it is just. But where does that creation come from? Like we regularly say, like we look at our children and we go, you created this, but where did it come from? Like, yeah, obviously we came together to create that, but where does that creation come from? I don't know. It is
right.
That's the question, isn't it? If we knew that.
One random speculation I've been thinking about lately is that I'm wondering, like, I wonder if when people say God, I'm wondering if what essentially what they're really referring to is the rule set of this reality and nature itself. Sometimes I wonder if that's just what God is. God is the playground. God is this flat realm with these rule sets, like you said, entropy and, some people might be like, well, why does entropy happen? And well, maybe there's just a limit. There's just a wall you hit, a causal wall, that there is no further explanation. That's just the barrier.
Just the rules of our world. That's just how things work.
That's just the way it is. And I mean, that's that's like a very concrete thing. Like if there really is that sort of limit, like we are in this realm and we can't leave and we have these rules and we can't break them. That's a very concrete thing that I think, I mean, if you're going to worship any God, why not worship these concrete, this natural world that exists outside of you and it's just there, whether or not you're there? Then again, some quantum physics experiments would suggest that the physical world does not exist if you're not observing it.
That's the going into light, proving what light is, the double slit experiment. If you don't observe it, it's not happening. That gets into the quantum world, doesn't it?
Which is crazy. I mean, you've obviously heard some about all that stuff. Yeah.
It is mental. Yeah, like we don't have explanations for those things. The knowing which path was, it creates the reality. Like we're literally, by experiencing something, we've just created our own reality, and that's kind of, yeah, I like that idea of the world around us is all there is. That's what my flat earth school notion is. Like, just that is what we need to get back to. It is our school, it is our teacher. We need to listen to it, feel it, touch it, experience it, get out of the virtual reality, get back into what we can experience. That's all we can experience. We can't experience space. We can't experience rotation. We can't experience curvature. These things that are just not there for our experience. We have to just get back to what we can experience, what we can see, what we can observe.
Well, if nature and the rule set of nature is God, then that would probably explain the whole metaverse thing really well. Because if there's like if there are people, some people say they're like Satanists, some people whatever, but people who hate God, this whole metaverse thing that we were talking about earlier, it would be the ultimate rebellion, to create a parallel reality to the natural world and the natural rule set, to create a parallel reality that's not the natural world, and you can do anything you want in the metaverse because you make your own rule set. You can fly, you can float around, you can become a freaking raccoon, whatever you want to become. That would be, to me, that could potentially represent this idea that people who are trying to rebel against that, the metaverse would be the perfect thing to rebel against nature. So yeah.
If people are in the mindset of this is a simulation and they don't like this simulation, they can get a simulation where they can literally build their own reality around them in the virtual world. Yeah, it seems like that is so appealing to people, because a lot of people at the moment, they're depressed, there's anxiety, there's things going on. People don't like what's going on in the world, and they feel like they can't help it. If they put into a virtual situation where they can control everything, it seems like everything's not a pain anymore. It is so appealing. And yeah, to create that parallel reality, that is the simulation that, like, it is so appealing to people.
And maybe that's why God is important. Again, going back to this pure speculation I'm having, then what if God is nature itself and the rules of this thing? So maybe God isn't a bearded man floating in the sky like some people anthropomorphize it. But what if God is just a natural world, this flat Earth playground that we live in, which has rule sets that we're all bound by. Forgot what I was going to say. So there's that. Very enlightening. Very enlightening.
It is a topic that if you sit around the campfire and you just go, "Why are we here?" You just talk about it for forever and ever. On that note, we've been going for an hour and 45 minutes. Is there anything else? Is there anything else you want to bring up? Is there anything else you want to kind of include in our discussion here before we kind of wrap it up?
No, I think we're good. I think we're good to wrap up here. Yeah, I guess I would just say the Earth is, I'm 99.99999% sure the Earth is flat. It took me a few years to get to that point. I called myself a globe skeptic for a while, and I guess I still technically am a globe skeptic, but now I'm pretty content just calling myself a flat earther. And that's it. I mean, some people want to jump into the metaverse. Like we were talking about earlier, some people, I think there's something about the natural world, whether you call it God or you just call it the flat Earth playground, or as you call it, the flat Earth school. I think some people, they just despise that. I think it's kind of like they're allergic to it. And I think that's what the world we see with the muzzles and the VR headsets and the metaverses. I think there's just some people who they just hate. They hate the actual reality of reality itself. So yeah, you got Odyssey up there. Yeah, Odyssey. If you're interested in finding my red pill philosophy, I still post stuff. My YouTube channel was terminated earlier this year. Very funny. I laughed. But I'm on Odyssey and Odyssey.com. You go there, you'll find me there. And that's it.
Red Pill Philosophy has been a great conversation. Thank you for joining me here on Flat Earth School. A lot of people have appreciated your input into the flat Earth. You've done a lot of great work on optics and that sort of thing, just investigating what our world is around us. So I want to thank you for that, for your previous work. It sucks that you're off YouTube, but as you said before, do you really want to be on a platform that censors what you're trying to put out? Like Odyssey is where you'll find Red Pill Philosophy now. If you want to see Red Pill Philosophy's journey, building what's behind him, his container house, think outside the container, is the YouTube channel. It's really cool. It is just getting back to basics of how everyone wants to be living. We want to be mortgage free. We want the simplest things possible. We just want to be living. Red Pill, thank you for coming on Flat Earth School.
Thanks, Mitchell. Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it. Great time, man. Thank you.
If you feel like the world turns on you, turn to Flat Earth School. It is around us 24/7 since the beginning of existence. I've been Mitchell from Australia. He's been Red Pill Philosophy. Until next time, get out and experience your Flat Earth School is around us. It needs to be experienced. Get out of virtual reality. Get into physical reality. All right, see you guys.
Jump in the pot.